I was at my final dress-fitting pins catching the light when Lucas's mother slid a navy folder onto the velvet bench. We were supposed to be choosing earrings. Instead, Celeste said calm as ice sign this by morning, or the ceremony is postponed. My heart thudded. I didn't touch the pen. I smiled, thanked the seamstress, and walked out still wearing the temporary hem. That tiny act leaving without a signature saved my life. Because what I learned next would tear the glossy Harrington picture apart and put the power back in my hands. My name is Maya Tran. I'm 29. People in my family call me the steady one. I grew up over a faux shop in Seattle's International District. My parents worked every day and slept like they were racing the clock. I studied with chopsticks as page markers and learned to count change before I was tall enough to see the counter. Scholarships paid for the University of Washington. Late nights, black coffee and code carried me through a master's in data science. I built a climate logistics tool in my tiny studio. It started as a weekend hack to help food banks cut fuel waste. It grew teeth. During my second year of grad school, my grandmother passed quietly in her sleep. She left me her condo memories and something I never expected: index funds she'd fed for 30 years. I used a slice to seed my startup Hazelbite and left the rest where it worked best, quiet and compounding. Between that and 2 funding rounds, my net worth climbed to $8.6 million before I'd learned to celebrate without flinching. I kept it private. My parents knew. My best friend Lynn knew. No one else had to. I met Lucas Harrington at a shoreline cleanup fundraiser. He was 32 tall and too handsome for the thrifted windbreaker he wore. He didn't just pose with the biodegradable trash bags. He filled them. We argued about the best banh mi in the city and swapped playlists. He asked for my number with the kind of eye contact that makes you forget you have any. I said yes. Dates turned into weekends. He was a corporate attorney with a green streak and a soft spot for mangy rescue dogs. We hiked Rattlesnake Ledge and burnt garlic bread on purpose just to eat the crispy bits. He memorized my coffee order. I learned his tell when he was nervous thumb presses to the inside of his palm. We fit. 6 months in, Lucas took me to meet his parents on Mercer Island. Their house was the kind you see in magazines. Glass Cedar Lakeview. Graham? His father shook my hand like a contract and talked in bullet points. Celeste appraised my shoes before she asked about my work. Data. Interesting, she said, a smile that never touched her eyes. Do you find practical use? The table was set with 3 kinds of butter, 2 salts, and silence that judged. I told myself it was just nerves. The little cuts kept coming. At our engagement brunch, Celeste accidentally mispronounced my last name on the place cards. At cake tasting, she called my dress minimalist, like it was a weakness. When I picked a small venue with good acoustics, she swapped it to a grand ballroom as a surprise. Lucas tried to buffer. Sometimes he pushed back. Sometimes he asked me to let this one go. I did often. I wanted peace more than I wanted a specific floral centerpiece. 2 weeks before the wedding, we finalized the playlist and the seating chart. 1 week before the florist lost my dahlias, and I laughed instead of crying. 3 days before Celeste texted a tea invitation. Just us girls, she wrote heart emoji as if we'd ever been on the same team. Her driver took me through rain that looked like thread. Their living room smelled like bergamot and old books. Unlike before, Graham was there standing by the window with a man I hadn't met. Sleek suit, thin tie, a leather portfolio hugged like a secret. Maya, darling, Celeste cooed. We just have housekeeping. Housekeeping wore a blue cover and 30 pages of clauses. The word prenup didn't scare me. The timing did. So did the tone. This is the Harrington standard, the thin tie lawyer said. Purely protective. Graham nodded. Nothing personal. I read. The language was sharp. Separate property forever. Future earnings siloed. That part fine. Then my stomach dropped. Moral turpitude clause so broad it could punish an opinion piece. Reputation damages payable to the family foundation at their discretion. An IP assignment rider that attempted to rope in any derivative invention developed during the marriage, whether conceived independently or collaboratively. Translation, Hazelbite now or someday could be argued into their vault. Celeste watched my face the way a hawk watches field mice. We'll need your signature by 9 a.m. tomorrow, she said, stirring tea she didn't drink. So we can focus on joy. Where's Lucas? I asked, even though I knew. The answer hurt anyway. In court prep, Graham said. We discussed the essentials with him. He trusts our judgment. Something in me went very still. I thought about the nights Lucas had opened my laptop and asked about my code like it was art. I thought about the way his thumb pressed into his palm when he worried. I thought about my grandmother ironing bills flat so they'd stack better in the drawer. I closed the folder. I'll have my attorney review it. That won't be necessary, Celeste said smoothly. This is standard. Standard for whom I asked. For families like ours, Graham replied not unkindly. Legacy invites scrutiny. We must be prudent. There it was, the line drawn around me. Us and you. I stood. My voice was steady. I'll be in touch by noon tomorrow. I left the folder on the table. I left before the driver could be summoned. I left because staying would teach them the wrong lesson about me. Rain stitched the windshield on the ride back to Capitol Hill. I stared at my reflection in the dark glass and counted my breaths. My phone buzzed. Lucas. How'd tea go? Mom said quick. I put the phone face down. At a red light, a memory slid in Celeste. Forgetting to introduce me to the partners at a gala. Later, finding my name missing from the donor list, even though Hazelbite had sponsored a table. A breadcrumb trail I hadn't wanted to see. I parked and climbed 3 flights to my walk-up. The hallway smelled like basil and someone's burnt toast. Inside, I kicked off my heels and let my hair fall. The silence hummed. I dialed Lynn. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you didn't sign anything. They gave me until 9, I said. They brought a lawyer. It was a hit job. What did Lucas say? He wasn't there, I said. They said he agreed in principle. Lynn swore softly. Maya, that IP clause. I know. You need Ava Chen, she said. First thing, she eats these for breakfast. I texted Ava at 8:47 p.m. Urgent, prenup wedding in 3 days, IP risk. Can you meet 7 a.m.? She replied before I set the phone down. I'll bring coffee, do not sign. Relief cracked my chest open a little. Then I called Lucas. He picked up fast. Hey, I was about to call you. Your parents ambushed me, I said. They want a signature by 9. There's an IP writer. Did you read it? Silence. Then the thumb press voice. I skimmed. Dad said, I'm not signing anything I haven't reviewed. Not tonight. Not ever under threat. I get it, he said quickly. I'll talk to them. You should have already, I said softer than the sting felt. I need to know you're with me. Not just near me. I am, he said, I am. We hung up with promises that felt like paper in rain. I opened my laptop. I pulled up Hazelbite's cap table patents, filed contracts signed. I printed statements I hadn't printed in years. The numbers didn't calm me, the order did. I placed everything in a plain folder and wrote Maya T. Personal on the tab. I set out 2 mugs. Ava takes hers black. I refilled the printer paper and out of nowhere remembered Celeste's scent gardenia and something metallic. Somewhere past midnight, a different memory surfaced. The Harrington housekeeper Marisol, pressing a business card into my palm the night of our engagement party. For deliveries, she'd whispered. The card wasn't for deliveries. It was a family accountant. I hadn't understood why she'd risk it. I do now. I slipped the card into my folder. I set my alarm for 6. I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling fan until it blurred. I wasn't the girl grateful to be chosen. I wasn't the outsider at a table set for people like them. I was a woman with a company I built, a family I loved, and a spine that didn't bend when someone said standard. Morning would come fast. So would the counter offer the truth, and the line we would draw together, or I would draw alone. I turned off the lamp and let the rain speak for the city. Tomorrow we start over on my terms. At 6:58 a.m., I was in my office with 2 mugs and a printer humming like a small storm. Ava Chen arrived at 7 sharp rain on her trench coat hair in a no-nonsense knot. She set a stack of tabs beside my folder and pushed a coffee toward me. Walk me through the ambush, she said. I did. Every clause, every smile that wasn't. Ava read in silence, a pencil flicking quick check marks down the margin. When she hit the IP assignment section, she frowned. At reputation damages, she whistled under her breath. They wrote this to scare you, she said, and to trap Hazelbite if love makes you sleepy. So I'm not crazy. You're very awake, Ava said. Good, we counter. We mirror the structure, fix the rod. Mutual disclosure, mutual protection. Clear carve-outs, your IP, your pre-marriage equity. Any derivative work stays yours unless you expressly license it at market rates. No moral turpitude catch-alls. If they want a conduct clause, it applies to both of you, and it's narrowly defined. Future earnings fair formula. Spousal support waiver fine if we balance with joint asset rules. Dispute resolution, Med Air B, not whatever secret panel their foundation chairs. She turned a page. 9 a.m. deadline is theatrical. We'll set a real clock. I slid Marisol's card across the table. Family accountant, handed to me at our engagement party. I thought it was about flower deliveries. It wasn't. Ava smiled. The universe sends messengers. You should call. I did. Rowan Pike answered on the second ring, voice tight and polite. Ms. Tran, I was told you might reach out. I have a 20-minute window at 11. Atrium at the Rainlight. Why me, I asked. Silence, then a careful answer. Not everyone appreciates what's fair. I do. He hung up before either of us could get in trouble. Ava began drafting. I watched her build a fortress out of words. She asked short questions and accepted short answers. Patent filings, I handed copies. Cap table updated. Trusts in your name, none. Any non-competes narrow and expired. By 8:40, she had a working skeleton. I'll polish and send a PDF by noon, she said. Meanwhile, you should reset the Harrington clock. Beat them to tone. I typed and deleted twice. Then I sent it to Celeste Graham and their counsel. Subject prenuptial review timeline. We will provide a reviewed, mutually protective draft by 300 p.m. today. No signatures will be executed under threat or artificial deadlines. Please refrain from any wedding-related cancellations while counsel confers. Maya. I added Lucas on BCC. He replied in under a minute, proud of you. Meeting you at 11 after court prep, I typed back, 11:30. Rainlight Atrium. Come alone. I texted Lynn a quick update. She responded with 3 fire emojis and remember who you are, the validator doing her job. At 11, I crossed slick sidewalks to the Rainlight. The atrium's glass roof held 1,000 silver beads of rain. Rowan was already there, pale and precise hands wrapped around a T like he needed the heat. I have 10 minutes, he said without preface. I'm not your enemy. I'm not their enemy either. I'm just tired of being asked to fold numbers into silence. Then don't, I said. Tell me what the prenup is meant to serve. He breathed out through his nose. They're moving assets, he said softly. Creating a legacy preservation trust with reputational triggers. If a public event occurs, press scandal lawsuit. Anything that dents the brand, the trust can freeze distributions. The foundation funds certain projects when that happens. It's not illegal, it is strategic. Strategic like writing a conduct clause so wide you can drive a truck through it, I said. He didn't disagree. There's also a draft concept at the foundation. Harrington Impact Lab. It's a shell now. They want to partner with innovative civic tech to signal virtue while keeping costs low. Internally, someone floated your software as a pilot. My pulse ticked up, without talking to me. You've been spoken for since the engagement announcement, he said, not unkindly. Some older boards move like the future is theirs to schedule. He stirred his tea eyes on the spoon. I didn't tell you this. I told you to ask better questions. Why are you risking this? I asked. His jaw worked. Because once 15 years ago, I watched a smart woman sign herself into a corner for love. He slid a thin envelope across the table. These are public filings, nothing confidential. Read line 3 on page 4. I didn't open it there. Lucas walked in rain in his hair tie crooked. He saw Rowan hesitated and recovered. I'll give you 2 a minute, Rowan said. He stood, nodded to Lucas, and vanished into the rain. Who was Lucas began? An accountant who likes clean math, I said. Sit. He did. He reached for my hand, then thought better of it. I talked to my dad, he said. I told him the deadline was absurd. I told him I won't coerce you. And he said I was being emotional. Lucas's thumb pressed hard into his palm. He said men in our family don't let feelings interfere with prudence. He's not marrying me, I said. You are. Lucas's eyes were steady. I know, I'm with you. My phone buzzed. Celeste, darling. I see you've engaged counsel. How grown up. Please remember the venue has a cancellation clause. The band does too. I'd hate for guests to be inconvenienced. A photo followed, the ballroom glowing empty. It felt like a threat wearing pearls. I put the phone face down. You asked for my honesty, I said to Lucas. Here it is. Your parents' plan isn't just protection, it's acquisition. Of me, of Hazelbite, of narrative. I won't be folded into a brand strategy. I don't want you folded into anything, he said. I want to stand next to you. Then do it, I said. Tonight, with boundaries. He nodded. Where? Here, I said, looking up at the sky held above us by glass. Rainlight has a private lounge, 7 p.m. You, me, Ava, your parents and their lawyer, neutral ground. We'll present the counter. No ambushes, no more clocks that run only one way. Lucas exhaled like he'd been holding it all morning. I'll make it happen. We grabbed sandwiches and strategized. I told him about Harrington Impact Lab without revealing Rowan. His jaw tightened. If Mom tried to draft your company into a goodwill campaign, I'm going to be sick. Don't be sick, I said. Be clear. Back at my office, Ava hit send on the counterdraft at 2:58 p.m. It was clean, calm, and impossible to misread. IP carve-outs in bold. Mutual non-disparagement. No reputation fines to any third party. Transparent post-marriage ventures process. A sunset review clause that required both parties to meet every 3 years and update terms if life changed. She CC'd their counsel and attached a one-page memo. Our client will not negotiate under threat. Kindly confirm 7:30 p.m. availability at Rainlight. Please bring red lines. We will do the same. At 3:11 p.m., their lawyer replied, confirmed, parties will attend. No admissions as to tone implied. Celeste added a separate note. Maya, I hope you're not letting professionals ruin a family moment. We had such pretty plans. Ava smirked. She really texted pretty. She did. Good, it means she's rattled. Ava leaned in. One more thing. Tonight say little. Let the paper speak. They like to hear themselves. Let them. Then choose your moments. I opened Rowan's envelope. Line 3, page 4, in a routine filing. Harrington Legacy Preservation Trust contingent. Allocation to reputational remediation initiatives activated by material adverse public perception events. In plain English, a war chest that grows when someone bleeds. A breadcrumb fell into place. 2 months ago, a columnist had run a cynical piece about tech interlopers marrying into old families. The photo they used, me in a red dress at a fundraiser, laughing at something Lynn said out of context and easy to twist. I'd shrugged it off. Celeste had clipped it. Scrapbook, she'd said. I believed her. Let's win clean, I told Ava. No leaks, no shock plays, just facts. Facts and spine, Ava said. You've got both. At 6:40, I stood in the Rainlight's powder room fixing a loose strand. I wore a navy dress and my grandmother's jade pendant. Calm isn't a feeling, it's a choice you repeat. I repeated it. Lucas met me at the lounge doors with a look that said 1,000 things, and one that mattered, I'm here. We stepped into the room together. Graham stood firsthand already out like we were opening arguments. Celeste turned Diamond's bright smile brighter. 7 o'clock rang once in the lobby below. We took our seats. Ava slid the counter across the table like a dealer who knew the game. Shall we begin, I said. And for the first time since this started, I felt the ground tilt toward level. The Rainlight lounge smelled like citrus and new leather. Rain tapped the glass roof like fingers drumming a verdict. A low piano cut through the murmur. Ava and I took the side with our backs to the wall. Lucas sat beside me, shoulders squared, jaw set. Across Graham aligned his pen parallel to the table edge. Celeste arranged her smile. Their attorney introduced himself as Mr. Vance. Crisp, economical, the kind of man who treats pauses like billable time. He reached for our packet. Ava didn't make him wait. She slid the counter across second copy for Graham third for Vance. Mutual protections, clear carve-outs, red lines tracked. Vance skimmed eyes moving the way scanners move. You've removed our reputation clause. We replaced it. Ava said even, specific mutual and not payable to any third party. No fines that funnel to a family foundation. No penalty triggered by perception. Objective conduct only. Celeste's eyebrow flicked. Our foundation is hardly a third party, dear. It funds relief when the family is dragged through the mud. Dragged, I repeated, tasting the word. By whom? She sipped water. Public life is cruel. Graham cleared his throat. Legacy invites scrutiny. We've learned to anticipate storms. Ava tapped the IP section. To the real storm. Intellectual property. Hazelbite, including derivatives, stays Ms. Tran's separate property, absent an explicit arm's-length license. Likewise, Mr. Harrington's pre-marriage assets remain his. Future ventures together get their own terms. That's what fairness looks like. Vance steepled his fingers. Suppose a spouse's invention tarnishes the other's name. What then? Narrow mutual non-disparagement, Ava said. No gagging, no weaponized perception. If someone commits actual defamation, the law already exists. And the moral turpitude clause, Graham asked. Narrowed and mutual, Ava replied. Criminal conviction for specific offenses. Not an umbrella for opinions you dislike. Celeste's smile tightened. You sound very certain, Ms. Chen. I am, Ava said. Ambiguity is where control hides. Vance flipped to the last page. A sunset review every 3 years, he read aloud. Cute. It's responsible, I said. People change. Agreements should too. Graham's pen stopped. He looked at me for the first time like I was a person, not a problem. Why the secrecy, Maya? Why not bring this up sooner? The same reason your team waited until 3 days before the wedding, I said. Timing serves leverage. You chose yours. I'm choosing mine. Lucas spoke voice low. We're not negotiating with a clock ticking only in one direction. Celeste turned to him, a mother switching masks. Darling, I only want you safe. Marriage is a risk. Women have assets, Lucas said, cutting in. So does Maya. So do I. This paper protects both. Or it's nothing. The bartender dropped a shaker behind the counter. The sound made Celeste flinch. Her gaze snapped back to me. You've kept your circumstances to yourself. I've kept my work mine, I said. Quietly, on purpose. Vance tapped one paragraph with his pen. This no third-party beneficiary language will need softening. Foundations are extensions of families. No, Ava said smoothly. They are legal entities with boards and agendas. They have no place in a private agreement's penalty structure. I felt something settle between my ribs. Steel lining. Calm isn't a feeling. It's a choice you repeat. I repeated it and opened the thin envelope Rowan had given me just enough to see what I already knew would be there. The words themselves were clinical, but they stung. Legacy Preservation Trust. Reputational remediation initiatives. Material adverse public perception events. I looked up. If we're talking storms, I said, let's be clear on the lightning rods. Your trust includes a trigger that freezes distributions and routes money to remediation whenever a headline goes sideways. That's legal. It's also a structure built to reward scandal with control. Graham didn't blink. We file transparently. Anyone can read. That's how I did, I said. Celeste set her glass down too carefully. This is family business. It becomes my business if clauses in your draft aim to tie my work to your trigger, I said. If you want clean separations, we write them. If you want a net, say that out loud. Vance interlaced his fingers. No one is netting you, Ms. Tran. Then you'll have no issue striking anything that gestures at it, Ava said. Graham exhaled. What do you want? I want what we put in writing, I said. Protection for both. Respect for boundaries. 0 fines to any foundation now or ever. No catch-all conduct language. No reach into Hazelbite. Celeste laughed light and brittle. Hazelbite, she said, like it was a toy. You've built something sweet. We thought to elevate it. That's what the Harrington Impact Lab would have offered. A platform. How considerate, I said. Which board voted on that approach? Which consent did you secure? Mine. Color rose in her cheeks. Don't be ungrateful. Lucas turned to her, a muscle jumping in his jaw. Ungrateful to whom? For what? For the privilege of being branded. Graham raised a hand, trying to stop the slide. Let's keep this productive. It is productive, Ava said mildly. Every time the intent peeks through, we can answer it with language. Vance cleared his throat. We'll need time to review. Some of Ms. Chen's edits are vigorous. Clear, Ava corrected. You'll have our red lines in Word if you prefer. Track changes can be comforting. He almost smiled. Noon tomorrow? Noon, not 9 a.m., I said. No clocks used as cudgels. Graham nodded once. Noon. He looked to Lucas. You'll keep the family updated. I'll keep Maya updated, Lucas said. The family will get what it gets. Celeste's fingers pressed a line into her napkin. After all we've invested. In a party, I said. Yes, thank you. The marriage is ours. For a beat, nobody spoke. The rain softened like it was listening. The piano shifted to a standard my grandmother used to hum while steaming rice. I noticed Graham noticing the jade at my neck and hating that it meant something he didn't have a name for. Vance slid our packet back toward us with his thumb. We'll return edits in the morning. I anticipate discussion on non-disparagement scope and the commercialization clause. Ava nodded. We'll consider narrow mutual language tethered to verifiable harm. Not feelings, not churn. Celeste stood. Then we're done here. She smoothed her dress as if it had wrinkled. Maya, there's still time to prove you're capable of grace. Families endure because someone chooses to be flexible. I didn't stand. Grace and flexibility are not synonyms for surrender. Her smile held, but a seam showed. Be careful, she said softly. The city has a long memory. So do I said. They left first. Graham's hand hovered over Lucas's shoulder and fell. Vance tucked a folder under his arm, then reached to shake Ava's hand, because men like him respect sharp edges when they cut cleanly. The door clicked shut. The piano stopped between notes. Lucas let out a breath that shook. He turned to me like I was home and danger at the same time. How did I not see it? Because you love them, I said. Love makes us edit. I hate that she said elevate, he muttered. You caught it, I said. That's what matters. Ava gathered our papers. You were perfect, she said, and I believed her because she doesn't hand out comfort for free. Go eat, sleep, tomorrow we finish. My phone buzzed on the table, a message from an unknown number kitchen. Now, backdoor M. Marisol. Lucas glanced at the screen. What is it? An invitation, I said. The rain eased to a hush. Somewhere below a delivery cart rattled across tile. Ava watched my face, reading what I wasn't saying yet. Should I come, Lucas asked. I thought of Rowan's careful voice, of Celeste's slip about the impact lab, of the way Vance kept glancing at a second folder he never opened. Not yet, I said. If this is what I think it is, I need to see it first. We stepped into the corridor. The air smelled like thyme from the restaurant downstairs. At the end of the hall, a busser propped a service door with a crate of limes. Cold air licked my ankles. I told Lucas to wait by the elevator. He didn't like it. He nodded anyway. I pushed into the narrow back passage and followed the sound of a refrigeration unit humming in the dark. A figure waited where the light didn't reach small, steady hands folded. Ms. Maya Marisol whispered, I have something you need to see. Her fingers slipped a blue folder from beneath her apron. My pulse tripped. The cover was embossed with a familiar crest. Through the thin paper, I could make out the faint outline of my company's name. I took it. The cardboard was cold from the walk in the rain. Somewhere above us, the piano found its melody again. I slid my thumb under the flap and opened it. The back hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and cold metal. The fridge unit hummed. A fluorescent bulb ticked. Marisol stood there like a statue apron damp from the rain. She placed the blue folder in my hands and looked past me in case the walls had ears. It was on the study desk, she whispered. Your name was on the first page. I thought you should decide for yourself. My fingers were numb. The cardboard was slick. I cracked the flap. The first sheet was a cover memo. Harrington Foundation, Impact Lab Internal Draft. Under it, Hazelbite Acquisition Pathway Soft Control Variant. I read, Phase 1. Engagement Optics. Pair bride-to-be with Foundation Pilot. Leverage narrative of modest roots. Generational uplift. Talking points bulleted, including my parents' faux shop, like it was a prop. Phase 2. Integration. Secure Consulting MOU. Brand alignment. Optional, non-exclusive license to Core Optimization Engine. A handwritten note in the margin. Optional, negotiable. Push via family council, pre-wedding leverage. Phase 3, containment. If resistance persists, initiate reputation. Remediation event to trigger LPT clause. Target article framing, algorithmic bias. Municipal contract favoritism. Use partner outlet. Another note, keep damage superficial. Enough for trigger. I stared at the words until they blurred. The hum of the refrigeration unit got louder. My breath didn't go in right. Beneath the memo sat a draft MOU. It used my company's name like it already belonged to them. Hazelbite agrees to provide. Hazelbite acknowledges. Hazelbite will. A signature line with my name typed neat and wrong. The next pages were a media calendar. T3 days, human interest piece. T1 profiles of the couple. If needed remediation, op-ed by Celeste Harrington framing. I couldn't finish the line. My stomach turned. Then a background brief stamped reputational risk. They had clipped the same red dress photo and annotated it with a snide caption. They had a line about my father's overloaded credit card from 2008, like that was a scandal and not a recession. They called my code unproven at scale. They suggested leveraging friendly procurement voices to slow a city pilot if motivation required. There was one more page. Emails. A printed chain between Vance Celeste and a PR firm. One line burned 9 a.m. forces compliance. Love makes people rush. If she balks, we execute phase 3 as a show of capability, then welcome her post-wedding. I closed the folder. The room tilted. The lemon cleaner punched the back of my throat. Marisol touched my arm. I shouldn't see. I'm sorry. You did the right thing, I said. My voice sounded like it came from the far end of the hallway. Why help me? She glanced toward the door. Because I have a daughter. Because no one helped me when I needed it. Because you said please to the dishwashers at the engagement party. Her mouth twisted. They don't say please. Don't. Does anyone know you took this? She shook her head. I used my phone to take pictures. The folder you can return. The truth you keep. I slid the papers back in every edge aligned. Thank you, I whispered. If anyone asks, you didn't see me. I am a shadow, she said, and ghosted through the service door. I stood alone in the hum. My hands shook. Not from fear, from clarity. I tucked the folder under my coat and walked back toward the elevator. Lucas was pacing, tie-loosened eyes searching. When he saw my face, he stopped. What happened? Proof, I said, of everything. We found Ava at the bar, sipping club soda like it was war rations. I set the folder down between us and opened it to the memo. She read fast. Her jaw clenched at phase 2. It locked at phase 3. They put it in writing, she said, almost reverent. Of course they did. People who've never been told no forget paper is a blade. Lucas read next. I watched the color leave his face and then rush back in. His thumb pressed hard into his palm. My mother signed off on this, he whispered. My father approved a plan to hurt you and call it weather. Not just me, I said. Hazelbite. The people it serves. They're not collateral. He looked at me like he wanted to fix the whole world with his hands and had discovered they were only hands. He swallowed. I'm so sorry. Ava laid out the steps like a surgeon. We send a litigation hold letter tonight. To the foundation, the family office, Vance's firm, the PR shop. They're on notice to preserve every email text draft calendar. If a single thing disappears, we will ask a judge for sanctions. Can we do that and still get a prenup signed? Lucas asked, voice raw. Yes, Ava said. We can also add 2 new clauses, non-interference and non-retaliation. Clear, mutual. No family entity may engage in reputational tactics against either spouse or their businesses. No covert leverage. Liquidated damages if violated. Big ones. And the impact lab I asked. They wanted Hazelbite as a trophy. Ava's smile was all teeth. We attach a no-use, no-likeness rider. Your name, your brand, your software cannot appear in any marketing or partnership without your written consent. If they want to partner later, they can come to you like adults with a check and a contract. Lucas was very quiet. Then he said I need to see them. Not to ask, to tell. In person, Ava asked. He nodded. Yes, tonight. I looked at the calendar page again. T3, T2, T1. Let's choose the field, I said. Neutral, bright lights, witnesses. Rowan, Lucas said immediately. If he's willing. I texted Rowan. We have docs. Will you sit as witness to a boundary meeting? He replied in one bubble. Yes. 8:30. My office. Bring counsel. Ava checked her watch. We have 2 hours. I'll finalize the addenda. Maya, call Lynn. You need your anchor. Anchor, Lucas asked. Friend who says the hardest thing and hugs after Ava said. Every plan needs one. I stepped aside and called Lynn. She listened without interrupting. They planned a hit piece, she said finally. Girl, burn it all down. We're going to do something cleaner, I said. Come to Rainlight at 8. If I start second-guessing, look at me and shake your head. That I can do, she said. And I'm bringing buns. Revolutions need carbs. We reconvened at my office. Ava typed like music. I read every line. We added a dispute venue clause that kept any fight out of their favorite arbitration pool. We added a public statement protocol if the family wanted to make announcements using my name. Both spouses had to approve the text. We added consequence if any entity tied to the Harringtons initiated or funded a reputational hit. The prenup self-destructed on their side only. Every protection they wanted gone. Every wall they counted on down. Lucas read that line twice. Harsh, he said. Deterrence, Ava replied. You don't stop a rain by wishing. You cover the roof, and you find the arsonist who pokes holes. At 8:20, we rode the elevator up to Rowan's floor. The offices were glass and soft wood. The city glowed below like a circuit board. Rowan opened the conference room himself, sleeves rolled expression set. They'll bring heat, he warned. They're not used to having to take a seat they didn't pick. We brought water, Lynn said, popping up from a chair with a tote full of buns. She hugged me so hard, the jade pendant pressed a cool circle into my sternum. You good? I am, I said. And I was. Scared, yes, but steady. The folder had burned away the doubt. At 8:31, Graham, Celeste, and Vance arrived together. Celeste clocked Rowan and masked her surprise in half a second. Graham scanned the room and calculated new math. Vance looked at Ava and gave the small nod people give their equals across trenches. Rowan spoke first, voice neutral. We're here to memorialize boundaries and correct course. I'm a witness. Nothing said leaves this table without consent. Celeste ignored him. She looked at me. You returned something that belongs to us. I slid the blue folder back across the table. I returned paper, I said, and put you on notice. I handed Vance the stack of letters Ava had printed. He took one, read the first line, and his face changed. Litigation hold, preservation, penalties. Graham's pen tapped once. This is unnecessary. It's necessary, I said, because your plan used my name like a lever. Because your trust incentivizes scandal. Because your timeline used my wedding like a deadline for surrender. Celeste's voice was sugar with gravel in it. We meant to help you. You meant to own the story, I said, and you wrote how you'd do it. Vance held up a hand. Let's be practical. You have our attention. What are your terms? Ava slid the updated prenup across, now thicker by 3 pages. Non-interference, non-retaliation, no use, no likeness, mutual, measurable, and a kill switch clause if any Harrington entity plays dirty. Graham read mouth a straight line. Celeste didn't read. She watched Lucas. He didn't look away. I'm with Maya, he said. This is the only way forward. You would do this to your own family, she asked softly. I'm doing this for my family, he said. The one I'm building. Silence stretched. The city buzzed below. Someone in another room laughed and then hushed as if the building itself knew to listen. Graham closed the packet. We'll need until morning. You'll have until noon, I said. We've given you enough nights. Vance nodded once. Noon. Celeste picked up the blue folder by its corner like it might stain. Return to sender, she said to no one. She stood. Congratulations, you've made yourselves very important. I didn't have to make anything I said. I already was. They left. The door sighed shut. I sat back. My hands lay flat on the table, palms cooling. Lynn slid a bun toward me. Sugar. Please, I said. I took a bite. It was warm and ridiculous and perfect. Rowan leaned his knuckles on the table. You did well, he said. All of you. Ava smiled small and fierce. Tomorrow they'll come with cosmetic edits. Hold the line. Lucas reached under the table and found my hand. His fingers were cold. Mine were too. We warmed each other. We cleaned up the papers. We walked to the elevator. In the glass, our reflections stood shoulder to shoulder. Not polished. Not perfect. Present. The doors slid open. The night smelled like wet cedar. The city breathed. Tomorrow, I said. Tomorrow, Lucas said. We stepped out not into a storm, but into air that finally felt ours. I woke to a city hushed by wet clouds and my phone buzzing like a trapped bee. Ava. Heads up. Expect cosmetic edits. Hold steady. I brewed tea I wouldn't taste and touched the cool circle of jade at my throat. At 8:12 a.m., the printer spat our final draft with the added non-interference, non-retaliation, and no use, no likeness riders. At 8:19, I forwarded it to Vance with a simple line, see you at noon. At 9:07, the punch landed. A push alert lit my lock screen. Startups algorithm flags, vulnerable zip codes, equity or exploit. The byline was a columnist who loved a tidy outrage. The photo was me in that red dress again. The body quoted anonymous procurement staff and a foundation advisor suggesting Hazelbite favored donors. 2 graphs were cherry-picked from an old pilot we'd already corrected. It was phase 3 in print, just enough mud to splash, not enough to stick unless I let it. I called Ava. She answered on the first ring. Saw it, she said. Clock starts now. Good news, they just violated a litigation hold. I'm not sure whether to scream or thank them, I said. Neither, she said. We move. She fired off an emergency cease and desist to the outlet and a TRO packet to a judge's clerk. She CC'd Vance and the Foundation's counsel with the article link timestamped after last night's preservation letters. Paper turns sharp when timestamps line up. I texted Lucas the headline. "I'm coming to you," he wrote, 2 dots. Then I'm at their house. Stay put. I need to say this where it started. I stared at the screen until my reflection blurred. It would be easy to hit send on a thread with screenshots and fury. It would also be stupid. Lynn called before I could be stupid. "You breathing?" she asked. "Yes." "Good. Count to 10, drink water, and pull the receipts," she said. "Then speak in clean bullets." I dialed Professor Reyes, the third-party auditor who'd tortured Hazelbite's models 6 months ago. "Do you still have your bias audit letter?" I asked. "I need it public." "Already drafted a statement," she said. "Your tool performed within fair thresholds. The outliers were data quality, not intent. I'll post intent, tag you, tag the city." "Thank you," I said, and meant it with my whole chest. Meanwhile, Rowan pinged I saw the piece. It's sloppy. Also reckless post-hold. I'm in the noon meeting. As witness and as a man who enjoys watching hubris sweat, at 10:02, the outlet added an update. Hazelbite responds. My statement was 3 lines, no adjectives. Hazelbite's mission is efficiency and equity. Independent audit attached. We welcome oversight. We reject coordinated attempts to leverage our work for private agendas. I linked Reyes's audit our code change log and contracts showing no donor access. No heat, just light. Ava texted a checkmark and a gavel emoji. Judge set a 1:30 telephonic on the TRO she wrote. We can hold it in our pocket, or unsheath if they keep playing. At 10:37, Lucas called. The line picked up to silence first, then his voice rough. They won't admit it, he said, but I saw the emails on the printer. Her notes in the margins. He told me I was being theatrical. I told him I was being a husband. What did she say? That I'd understand when I had a legacy to protect. He exhaled. I told her people are not props. You are not a prop. The room steadied under me. Noon, I said. Noon, he said. I'll be there. At 11:12, the venue manager emailed me a syrupy note. Pure contract unpaid balances allow us to release the date. Please advise. A second later, a text from Celeste Mix-Ups happened. If only we'd signed yesterday. The move was obvious. It still burned. I forwarded the email to Ava. Retaliation attempt, she wrote back. I'll handle. 10 minutes later, the manager replied with a sudden apology. Our mistake. Your date remains secure. When lawyers talk about tortious interference, people listen. The clock slid to 11:58. We took the elevator down. The Rainlight lobby smelled like clean stone and coffee. Ava walked beside me, legal pad under her arm, like a blade she didn't have to flash. Lynn trailed with a tote of emergency snacks and a stare that said, try me. We reached the conference room at 11:59. Rowan stood by the window. He nodded once, eyes flicking to the clock. Vance arrived on time. Graham and Celeste arrived late, of course. The kind of late that says we still believe time bends. I assume you've seen the morning's coverage, Vance said, as if weather had simply happened. I've seen a violation, Ava replied. She set our packet down the top page labeled Addendum Sanctions on Breach. Your side was on notice to preserve. Instead, someone activated a media contact with lines lifted from internal drafts. That is interference and retaliation. The kill switch clause now moves from hypothetical to imminent. Vance opened his mouth. Rowan lifted a finger. Careful, he said softly. I witnessed service of the holds. You will not like the audit trail on your end. Graham tried the businessman's pivot. Let's not escalate. We're here to finalize a fair agreement. Fair started yesterday, I said. I slid the blue folder's Phase 3 page across to him and laid the article beside it. This is intent. This is execution. The timestamps are your problem. Celeste kept her gaze on me, not the paper. You're enjoying this, she said, mocking lightness. No, I said. I'm surviving it. A beat. The ceiling vent sighed. Someone's pen clicked, then stilled. Vance spoke measured. If we stipulate that an overeager advisor acted prematurely, would you be amenable to a narrow carve-out? No, Ava said. No carve-outs. Not for you, not for your foundation, not for the ghost in your PR machine. You sign the non-interference as written. You accept the liquidated damages. You cease any impact lab planning that references our client. And you retract any smear with the same reach you used to spread it. Graham turned to his counsel. A whisper passed between them like a draft under a door. Celeste leaned back, unfolded her napkin, then spoke to the room like a hostess dismissing a theme she didn't pick. And if we decline, I slid a second envelope forward the TRO motion with the judge's time circled. Then at 1:30, the court will consider whether your network can be trusted not to poison a private contract, I said. We'll ask for a temporary order, barring you and your agents from touching my name, my company, or our wedding. We'll file our exhibits. The headlines will say what they say. And the trust you built to manage adverse perception events will have created a very public one. Lucas hadn't spoken yet. He did now, quiet level. Mom, Dad, you trained me to read risk, he said. This is risk. Stop. Something in Graham's face shifted. A calculation finished. He nodded once, sparse as a period. Vance. Vance tapped the packet, aligning its edges with the table. We accept the non-interference, non-retaliation, and no-use, no-likeness provisions, as written, he said. We have 3 wordsmithing notes on non-disparagement scope limited to commercial speech, and 1 venue tweak, but the substance stands. We will also issue a letter to the outlet clarifying inaccuracies. Not a letter, Ava said. A retraction with equal placement. And a statement from the foundation disavowing any coordination, today. Graham nodded again, slower, today. Celeste's mouth pressed into a thin line. In the wedding? Proceeds, Lucas said, without your clocks. She looked at him the way people look at a view that used to be theirs. Then she looked at me, and for a flicker, I saw something like recognition. Or just the mirror she never wanted. You've made him hard, she said. No, I said. I reminded him he's not made of paper. Rowan slid a pen across to Graham, like a dealer who knows the table is done. Vance marked the changes. Graham initialed. Celeste didn't touch the pen. She watched her husband do it. She watched her son watch him. We set noon to signatures. It was 12:23 by the time the last page was marked. Ava stamped the copies. I'll courier originals to the clerk, she said. Judge remains on hold if retraction doesn't post by 1. We stood. Hands were not offered. The room felt an inch taller. In the hallway, Lynn bumped my shoulder. You didn't even need the buns, she said. I'll still eat them, I said. My hands shook a little now that the danger was moving away. She pretended not to see and shoved a custard one into my bag. Lucas leaned in forehead to mine for a heartbeat. I'm sorry it took a fire to make me see the wiring, he said. It's over, I said, or at least contained. We reached the lobby. My phone buzzed. The outlet had posted a retraction with Reyes's audit embedded and a note from the foundation. We do not comment on private contracts and did not coordinate the original piece. It wasn't an apology, it was a retreat. I would take it. At 1:02, the venue manager sent a selfie with a thumbs up from the ballroom. Sound check is on schedule. Celeste texted nothing. Graham forwarded a PDF signed. Vance added, we appreciate your efficiency. Lawyer for lawyer. Translation, you could have gutted us. You didn't. Thank you. I took the stairs to the street. The rain had quit. The sky was the pale blue Seattle saves for people who survive something. I called my parents. My mother cried immediately and then scolded me for not eating. My father said only, Good and I heard pride under the single syllable thick as broth. A block away, a kid in a yellow slicker jumped both feet into a puddle and grinned at the splash like he'd invented physics. I laughed sudden and bright. Lynn squeezed my elbow. That sound, she said, is the sound of a woman who kept her name out of their mouth. We had a wedding to attend tomorrow. We had a paper shield that was finally a shield. We had a family that would require new vocabulary. That night, I set my dress on the back of a chair. I lined up my shoes. I hung the jade pendant on the lamp, letting the light warm it. Lucas texted a photo of the band's set list with a dumb caption. We were silly for a minute on purpose. The city exhaled with us. Before bed, I wrote 1 sentence in my notebook. You cannot be drafted without consent. I underlined cannot twice. Then I turned out the light and let sleep come like tide. Tomorrow would be vows and music and faces. Tomorrow would be the first day after a war nobody else at the reception would know we'd fought. And that was fine. Not every victory needs a microphone. We'd earned the quiet. The morning smelled like wet cedar and fresh coffee. I woke before my alarm and watched the light crawl across my dress. No buzzing panic, just quiet. The prenup sat in a sealed envelope on my dresser. Signed, balanced, boring in the best way. The city was rinsed clean. So was I. Lynn arrived with pins and lip balm and a look that said breathe. She braided a tiny thread of my hair back and clipped my grandmother's jade at my throat. Green for luck, she said. But you built your own. Downstairs, the car idled. Ava texted a single gavel emoji and a heart. Rowan sent a dot and then proud of clean math. My parents called from the lobby. Dad joked about not tripping. Mom asked if I ate. I ate half a bow to make her happy. The venue smelled like wood polish and lemons. Sound check hummed through the ballroom. I peeked into the empty space and saw chairs like a tiny forest, and an aisle that looked longer than it was. The florist slipped a white ranunculus into my bouquet, soft and sturdy. For resilience, she said. Guests arrived in a glitter of whispers. Lucas waited at the altar, tie, straight eyes bright. He looked like the man I'd met on a windy shoreline and the man who sat across battle tables and chose me. We locked eyes, and the room fell away. Music swelled. I walked. My father's hand was warm. My mother sniffed quietly and pretended she wasn't. I reached Lucas and took his hands. The officiant kept it short. We didn't. We wrote our own vows. I promised to build, Lucas said. Not walls, not nets, homes. I promise no clocks used as weapons. No threats disguised as care. I promise to pick you even when that means unlearning the old rules. My throat tightened. I promise consent in all its forms, I said. I promise the truth when it hurts, and the truth when it heals. I promise to guard what I make and celebrate what you make, and to meet you at the table as a partner, never a prop. We said yes to each other. We said I do. The room exhaled. The applause felt like rain on a tin roof. At the reception, Lynn gave a toast that made me laugh so hard the jade jumped. She said, love is a verb, and boundaries are love's grammar. Ava raised her glass from the corner and said to boring contracts and interesting lives. Rowan didn't speak. He caught my eye, tipped an imaginary hat, and faded back into numbers. Graham approached with 2 tumblers of sparkling water. He didn't make a speech. He didn't pretend to forget. He said simply, welcome, and clinked his glass to mine. It was a truce, not a rewrite. Enough. Celeste came later after the music pulled people to the dance floor. She stood very straight. Her dress was an architecture of restraint. You look radiant, she said, choosing a word that let nothing else show. The retraction posted. I saw, I said. She nodded like a verdict had been entered and turned to go, then she paused. You will find that legacy is heavy, she said. You will also find you can carry it differently. She left before I could answer. Near the kitchen door, Marisol poured water for a table of great aunts. Our eyes met. I tucked a small envelope into her palm as I passed. Inside were 2 things, a thank you note with my number and an offer letter from Hazelbite for an operations coordinator role with full benefits starting after my honeymoon. She pressed her hand to her chest. There was no scene. That was the point. We danced, we ate, the band played our stupid song, and we were stupid on purpose. For 1 hour, there were no memos, no clauses, no holds. Just joy and the sound of fork on plate and a kid sliding on his socks across polished floor like gravity owed him a favor. When the night thinned and the light softened, we slipped away to the terrace. The lake was ink. The city muted. I leaned into Lucas and felt his breath steady against my temple. Still here, he said. Still here, I said. We didn't talk about trust funds or foundation boards or who texted whom. We stood in the wind and let the air rinse the noise. Inside, someone started at last. The joke wrote itself. We didn't say it. The next morning, we flew to a small island where Wi-Fi was a rumor, and the only clocks were the tide and hunger. We swam, we read. We learned how to do nothing next to each other and call it everything. When we came home, the city felt kinder. 3 months later, Hazelbite signed a contract with the city after a public hearing packed with people who'd actually used our tools. We published our bias testing suite open source. Professor Reyes guest lectured at our office and roasted our assumptions with love. We hired 3 new engineers, and Marisol ran the place like a conductor. Plants lived. Invoices moved. Someone taped a sticky note to her monitor that said Director of Sanity. It stuck. The Harrington Foundation sent a formal note announcing a governance refresh. Harrington Impact Lab rebranded as a scholarship that required no photos. I didn't clap. I did not fight a ghost. I stayed in my lane and made my lane wider. Rowan took a new job leading risk at a firm that doesn't hide its levers. He sent me a photo of his desk, clean and unafraid. Vance remained polite in quarterly emails. He writes with verbs like stipulate and concede. We get along. Graham invites us to dinner once a month. We go every other. Celeste still loves a theme and a seating chart like a chessboard. She has learned to say my name without testing it first. Sometimes she asks about my mother's soup. Sometimes I send her jars of star anise with a card that says for broth and hard conversations. A year in, we hosted both families at our condo for a noisy lunch. Shoes piled at the door. My father taught Lucas to twist scallion pancakes. My mother taught Celeste how to taste for balance without measuring. They laughed at the same mistake. That sound did something soft in me. Not every day is clean. There are still emails where a tone arrives before the words. There are still headlines written by people who will never see what the food bank warehouse looks like at 6 a.m. There are still moments when my pulse spikes at an unknown number. When that happens, I touch the jade. I open the boring contract. I breathe. I call Lynn. I remember the hallway that smelled like lemons and the blue folder I opened with cold hands and a clear head. Last week, a young founder messaged me. What do you do when people with more money than you try to turn your life into their story? I told her this: own your name, own your dates. Put your boundaries in ink and your values in action. Keep receipts. Build allies who like light. When you can hold a door open for the next person and stand there while the wind tries to slam it. If you're watching this, maybe you've been underestimated. Maybe someone invited you to a table and then tried to seat you where you couldn't reach the food. Maybe love made you think you had to whisper to be kept. You do not. You can speak in full voice and ask for terms that look like respect. You can walk away from the wrong rooms and build better ones. Tell me in the comments, when did you draw a line and keep it? What did it cost? What did it give back? I read every story. Someone else will need your words as a map. As for us, we're learning the dull magic of routine. Grocery lists, park runs, code reviews, kissing in the kitchen when the rice cooker clicks. The dramatic part is over. The honest work began after the applause. I hang my jade on the lamp at night and let the light warm it. It is small. It is steady. It reminds me contracts end, choices repeat. We're still choosing. Every day. And that more than any ceremony is the promise we kept.